Hey, high performers, it's Brendan Burchard, author of the New York Times bestselling book, The Motivational Manifesto. Welcome to week number 4 of your high performance training, where we're going to jump into one of the most popular topics when you say the phrase high performance at all, which is high performance productivity. It's about how do I get more done? How do I manage the stress of life? How do I get ahead and move more quickly towards my dreams? How do I know what to say yes to, say no to, organize my day? All of those things we're going to be talking about in this video. And I hope that by now you also feel that this momentum is building, from this training. Because if you think about the things that we covered in the foundational part of the training, week 1, when we talk about high performance learning and application, week 2, when we started getting into your psychology, and week 3, when we started finally talking about physiology. If you just keep stacking these things on top of each other, you start feeling extraordinary momentum. I hope that by now, if you've put some things into practice from this course, you're already feeling more energy. You're already making your mind more optimized by the way you're thinking and the way that you're taking care of your physical body, that you feel a little more fresh, that you feel a little more energized to tackle the day, to do things. Because when you are managing your mind and your body, your day's activities become so much easier to master. And so please, 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 as we get to this point in the course, I'm going to count on some momentum here. And I'll go even more quickly in this session, in these sessions, than I have in the past, because they're straightforward. Our performance plan will help you through some of these things that we'll be covering here today. And it'll be about you just implementing and doing and doing. And that will be the rest of this course. It'll be more and more an implementation of some of the basics and the fundamentals that will get you that next level of high performance, no matter where you're at. I also want to take a moment here to congratulate you. We're about 4 weeks into the training right now, and I understand the commitment, the time, the energy to watch these videos, to do the worksheets, to take the notes, and frankly, just to, think about your life again, to get back into it, to think about what do you want really? What do you want your relationships to be like? What do you want your day to be like? That next level that we keep talking about, well, what is that for you? I know that could be for some of you, that was the physiology piece. Some of you, that was the mindset piece and the psychology piece. Some of you, it was, first part of the foundational training, like here's the 10 ways to predict if you're going to get ahead. So we've covered a lot by now, and I just want to congratulate you, because if you're still listening, still watching, you're my kind of people, that lifelong learner who keeps just looking for new ways to improve and new ways to grow. So I want to congratulate you. Give a shout out and celebration to all of those watching right now. And please celebrate yourselves too. Post in the comments down below, hey, we're here, just let everybody know that you're still through with this. You're still struggling through. You're honoring that journey of the struggle, honoring that journey of growth as we continue marching forward to high performance. Now, I'm going to cover productivity in ways that maybe are a little psychological, maybe a little tactical, maybe a little bit challenging, giving you some crap along the way, because really productivity is the easiest place for us to say, I just didn't feel like it today. I didn't feel like it. Hopefully, if you got your energy and your mindset now from those last 2 weeks, you know how you think. You're developing more energy to go forward. Now we can rock. The first thing you must do to become more productive is you must take command and own your day and own your role. People who become more productive don't become more productive simply because they have some new app on their phone. That's not what it's about. It's about a decision. At some point to say, you know what? I got to take back my life. If you read my book, The Motivational Manifesto, which I hope you have, declaration number 1 and 2 is all about just grabbing your life back, reclaiming your life agenda. That to really start moving ahead, to be more productive, it's not a tactic. It's a psychological switch that's a commitment that says, you know what? This day is my day. We've each been garnered and blessed with this day. What happens in this day is entirely up to me outside of fate, right? Chance, fate, whatever you want to call it. Look, things will come up in your life that will disrupt you. But over a period of time, we become who we become, and we achieve what we achieve because of the way we managed our days. And that is the most fundamental, singular block of time we all have to count for our lives. How did I manage the day's activities. And this needs to be a moment, just like I challenged you in the physiology section to say, this must be a moment that you decide to get in the best health of your life. Well, at some point, either today or in your future, you're going to say, I'm going to get back in command of my life. I'm going to take back my agenda from all the distractions, from all the needless things that I do, from responding to everybody else's emergency and always being thrown out of my own dreams, and I'm going to sink right back in to the captain's table. I'm going to, grab the wheel, whatever the metaphor is for you. You got to decide to take command of your life, and it must be in that individual measuring block of your day. Each day is either slipping away or being optimized and opportunized. Each day is either being felt, enjoyed, brought and filled with affect and emotion and action and awareness, or it's just kind of like going through the motions. And people who become more productive, they have a discipline to really understanding they don't want to lose a lot of days. I think in some ways the most productive people I've ever met in my life have a sense of mortality. And it's not productive just for this type A productivity that a lot of bloggers like to attack. It's about productive towards knowing that we are becoming our best self. It's productive to achieving higher states of awareness, higher qualities of relationships. It's that our days aren't just being blasted by without any attention and deserved reverence for the magic that we have today. The people who I know who just crush it out there, they're in touch with their mortality. They're aware that we don't have that many days. So it's not just about building the big new company, earning the millions of dollars, becoming famous. I don't even, look, character isn't developed by trying to become famous or a billionaire. Character is developed by trying to become a better human, trying to be more kind and compassionate to other people. But even that takes aim in each day. And here's what I find over and over and over. If we can get someone to take command of their life and really prioritize their day, really make their day something meaningful to them, the next step of high performance for everybody is always this one, to finally own their role. See, a lot of people have never stepped into their role, so they don't get anything done. They're not attached to the roles that they're playing in life yet with significance and meaning. Let me give you an example. Take somebody, imagine people who we don't admire. Imagine a deadbeat dad. Someone who just doesn't, has responsibilities to care for the children, doesn't do it. Total deadbeat dad. Now, what's going on there? What don't we respect? What we don't respect is that person isn't owning their role. They're a father, but they're not playing that role. Well, that happens in people's lives in other ways too. You're the business owner. If your role is, I own the business, I am the leader, but you're not fully invested in that role, then everyone around you feels it, blames you, and worse, you know it too, and you feel like this restlessness and this impartiality to life. There's no immersion into that role. Look, an Olympic athlete doesn't say, I'm kind of, I play basketball on weekends. No, I'm a basketball player. They own the role. It's true for them. It's real for them. There's no question. I mean, imagine, and I had this big breakthrough too. Someone stood up at High Performance Academy one time and shared this extraordinary breakthrough he had when we talked about this, because he realized that, he had children and he was still married, and he had little kids that were running around, younger kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, if I remember right. But he never owned the role as, I'm their father. I'm the role model here. I have roles and responsibilities here. And he never really stepped into it. He was always kind of he was a participant, loving father, but he never really owned that thing. And a lot of parents don't do that. They never really step into I am in charge of this person's life. I am guiding this person. I am developing this person. It's almost like sometimes there's parents who just they see their kids as an inconvenience. And obviously we don't like that. And yet it comes into other people's lives in so many different ways. They're sitting at a table with their friend and they know that they're that person that this friend has for them to reach out to vent with, to share with. And instead of owning that responsibility of the role right now to be a great friend, they check their Twitter. It's just they're not owning their life experience. Does that make sense? So what I want you to do is start owning your life experience, owning your day, owning the real roles that you play. If you're a team leader, own that. Start thinking about your leadership. Start reading books on leadership. Start asking people like, how could I lead better? How can I support you better? If you own your own business, here's how you know if you own it or not. Do you look at the stats? Do you look at the data? Do you look at the numbers? Are you really managing the business to profitability and growth? Have you owned the role that it is your job to make that organization function with excellence, optimization, and true service to the marketplace? Or do you just kind of, you casually have a hobby as the business? The next level for most of us is owning a greater amount of depth and meaning and significance in the roles that we play, whether as a parent, whether as a hobbyist, whether as a business owner, whether as a leader. And that's where your real productivity is going to come from. It's going to come from giving a damn again to the most important roles that we play and not being casual about them. Because that's where most people, they're casual about every single role. Everything in their life is casual. And you know what? That might feel fine for a while. And then one day they wake up and they're like, I don't feel like I've achieved my best. I don't feel like I have grown into my best self. I don't feel like I've given my best. I feel like I'm meandering all over the place and I'm not committed to anything. And human beings need to feel a deep sense of meaning, contribution, commitment, connection. And we don't have that unless we finally take back command of life a little bit and say, I gotta prioritize. This day means something to me, and who I am in this day means something to me, so I will move forward. I hope that helps you think. It is a mental frame that must be applied if any of these tools, ideas, or strategies I'm going to give you today are going to matter. That's it. And I know so many of you shared in our comment section in the psychology week when I talked about that idea, that foundational training, when I talked about here's all these areas of our life we can master, and the level into which we've mastered them has to do with how much awareness we've given to them, how much affect, or how much attention we've given to them, how much affect and action. But the overarching thing that drove all that was desire and command. How much desire do we have? How much command do we feel over that area of our life or want over that area of our life? And I mean, you guys literally by droves commented like the word command really resonated with that. So I'm going to just underline that here and remind you that's part of getting to high performance. It's taking back command of the moments, the days, the roles, our lives, so that we're not just floating through. And I know, look, I've said it all along. I know I'm preaching to the choir. You aren't the ones who are likely, rest on your laurels, watching TV all day. But we do know a lot of people are losing their lives to that. They're lacking that productivity in their life because they're watching 4 hours of television a day, or being distracted on the internet for several hours a day, or doing things. And by the way, people, I want to really emphasize this now. I'm okay when people browse, hang out, chill, explore, curiously look at things. I'm the guy that if I go past a bookstore, I'm going to be in there for 3-4 hours messing around, browsing. But I knew that was what I was going to do. Does that make sense? Like I might walk past. It doesn't mean I don't just wander. One of the things I'm most known for is how much I wander. I say, well, I got 2 hours here. I'm going to go wander. So I go downtown and I just wander all around. I go in a shop here, go in a shop there. But for me, I'm using that as creative fuel for my life, for engagement, for novelty, for lifting up my levels of happiness. I know I'm going to do it, where most people, when they get lost in a bunch of blue links or they get distracted all day long, it wasn't on purpose. They're not really exploring, growing, paying attention. And if we're going to get our days back, we have to say, I'm in command of this day. I cannot lose hours and hours and hours where I'm not moving my life agenda forward, where I'm not owning the role I'm supposed to play today. Because when we don't own it, then we have all these excuses. It's the greatest excuse ever. Well, I didn't have time. We probably had time. It's that we didn't make it important to ourselves. I tell people all the time, we don't need more time. We need more reasons to use our time wisely. Does that make sense? We don't need more time. Time is there. It's that we need more reasons to use it wisely. We need reasons that we care for other people, and that reveals that this question that we've had in the comments so much. Well, Brendan, I know I want to do these things, but I don't seem to have discipline to do it. And here's the magic of discipline. Discipline is merely a function of why you want something and a function of your expectation about whether or not you can have it. Let me break that down and unpack it. In our foundational training, we talked about this concept that we need to have why stacks. A why stack is, why do I want to achieve this thing? Why is it important to me? And if you can't stack on why you want it in several areas of your life, why it'd be good for your family or other people in your life, or stack on why it'd be good for society, if you don't start acquiring all these whys about why it's important, how are you going to have discipline? And discipline will just seem like something you're supposed to have, but you don't. But when you desire something, when there's something that you just like, you desire, and by the way, if you don't know your life's purpose yet, that's fine. But remember that our foundational training, here's the 6 key areas of your life. Make your purpose improving them. Even if you don't know what to do in your life, overall, you don't know your ultimate destination, just improve the 6 main areas of your life. That was what that message was there, and I'll say it again. If you're lacking discipline, then just choose those 6 areas of your life and aim at them and make the why nothing more than, I want to improve those areas because I'll feel better, because I'll contribute better, I'll give more. I know you know this, but if you're lacking discipline in any area of your life, I want you to look at what is the desire you have in that area? Why do you want it? And sit down and emotionally connect to that why. People who struggle with discipline, they're not clear about why they want something, and then even if they get clear about why they want it, 2 things hold them back. First one is, they're not owning the role that they're the only ones who's ever going to make that happen. No one is going to stand up and hand you a big plate of progress in life. Like you're going to go and take progress and make progress by your own sheer will, discipline, motivation, efforts every day, or you're not. And we all have to choose that. And I know that sounds very type A, but it's just true, isn't it? That we've got to have it. Look, the Dalai Lama has an agenda for the day. Mother Teresa had an agenda for the day. The great spiritual teachers, including Jesus, had an agenda for the day. There were things he wanted to accomplish while he was here on this earth. So we have to have this why am I here? What am I about? Who do I want to serve? What do I want to give? And if you don't have that yet, it's just reflection. Just sit and reflect. Sit down, put some energy towards it, get excited about it, decide to own the role as the person and the only person who can manifest that dream that comes from your heart. You know, one of the famous lines from the Motivation Manifesto essentially said, what if at the end of your life, that when you face your Creator or your God, the question that you receive from Him is this: how faithfully did you tend to that dream that I sowed in your soul? How faithfully? If you got a dream, how faithfully did you work towards it? Because I put it there for a reason. You were the only person who could deliver that gift to the world. That's why I gave it to you. And if you're at the point where in your life where you're like, well, I'm not sure what that dream is, that's okay. If you're not sure what to do, that's okay. Focus on improving all 6 of those life areas we talked about, and it will start to emerge. You know, sometimes purpose doesn't land on us like a piano and a sudden big breakthrough. Sometimes it just emerges by having lots of life experiences and looking at the areas of our life we need to improve, and improving our lives in those different areas becomes part of the purpose. And then the bigger purpose emerges later on. But here's the other thing that stops people. Even if they have the purpose, they've got the why stack, they've got the desire, they're owning their role, it's the expectation of whether or not their discipline will pay off. A lot of people stop being disciplined because they got disappointed, right? You want to talk about the number 1 killer to discipline? It's disappointment. They say, well, it didn't work out, Brendan. You know, I tried everything. It didn't work out, so I stopped trying so hard. Or, you know, I had a couple of days, I fell off the wagon, Brendan, so I just stayed off it. You know, I thought, what's the choice of why try again? And they gave up. And all I can say to you, if you see that you're lacking discipline, it's either because your why stack isn't significant, you haven't owned your role, or your expectation of all of what's possible for you, you don't believe it can be a success. In that case, please go back to the foundational training, watch that video that said the 10 predictors of success. Because look, all 10 of those categories, if you're not firing on all 10 of those categories, that's why you lack discipline. You don't believe it. You don't believe it'll be a benefit for you. You don't believe you can do it. You don't believe you have the autonomy, the resources, the time, the bandwidth, the support, all those 10 categories. You don't believe in those, so you don't have this. So please watch that training again. If you're like, Brandon, I'm just not disciplined, then go back, watch the training on the different areas of your life that you can improve, and then look at those 10 categories of why people don't succeed. Because mentally, it has nothing to do with you're a bad person. It has nothing to do with you're smart, capable, driven. It's not that you're lacking motivation and you are not lazy. It's that mentally, those 10 predictors of success, they're being rated too low by you. So you're not being connected to that desire because you don't believe it can happen in those categories. So please revisit that, because I can always tell people, when they say, I lack discipline, I'm like, you don't lack discipline. You lack the why, the expectation, and the commitment to the role. Let me say that again. You don't lack discipline. You lack the why, the expectation, and the commitment to the role. This is all psychology coming right forward to how you are managing your day. Look, maybe you are already the most disciplined person in the world, and I know that because, again, I'm preaching to high performers. It's so hard. The next level for you is the next level of depth and connection you have to your whys, to your expectations, those 10 categories that predict success, and owning your day and your role. I hope that helps. It will shift everything. We all get a point in our life where we make a decision to say, I'm going to start giving a damn about my day again and moving my life forward. And once we get to that, we care about productivity. It becomes something that isn't just task orientation. It's like, my day means something in my overall life. I want to leverage it, fuel it, take from it, give to it, experience it. That's what real productivity is. It's not just task management, it's life progress. Third idea, I'd like you to start to say no a lot. I mean, like crazy a lot. Like more than you are comfortable saying no. And that's hard for people. It's hard for people because, one, a popular myth that we should say yes to everything, and another one because we are scared to disappoint people, hurt people's feelings, not meet our obligations. So let's talk about those. You know, years ago, a famous book came out, and it's a recurring story in history of, gosh, you know, if we could just say yes to everything, maybe something would reveal itself to us. And I'm like, yes. You know, I tell high school graduates all the time, they say, what's my purpose? I say, you'll never know. Go do a bunch of stuff and follow your inclinations and your strengths and the places where you feel alive and like you're contributing or like you can make a difference. And it will reveal itself to you. But at some point, when you're talking to folks who are 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, or 90, they've said, you have some life experience now. And, you know, you probably have the areas of your life that you're out to improve. You probably have some family who you're trying to support. You probably have a mission or a dream or a goal or a career or a thing that you're chasing, a mission. And as you're doing that, everything tries to get in the way, right? There's nothing more predictable on the path of progress than unlimited distraction. It's like the world becomes a candy store, and you can just grab and eat from it and become just awful and horrible and gross and obese from all of it because it's just there. Everything is there. And what happens is for people, when they start losing real life progress, they started saying yes to every casual person that comes into their life, every casual idea, every new business opportunity, every new lesson, and they got distracted from actual life progress, which is the goal of mastering your productivity, to move you forward, to get you connected and deeply engaged and connected to the meaningful work and pursuits that you're chasing after. And so once you've found those areas, and again, if you've got a dream or mission, awesome, you're good to go with me. If you don't, go back to the training, look at those 6 areas of life that you can improve, and go knock them out. It's called the High Performance Life Arenas, by the way. I forgot until just now what the name of that was. But let's say no. Let's say no a lot more. My default stance to any opportunity is no. Let me check my priorities, my calendar, and my previous commitments. I say no to everybody. Doesn't matter. Biggest names in the world can email me. People on the cover of magazines. Brendan, can you do this and this? I always reply back. I'm like, doesn't look like it. Let me check my previous priorities, commitments, calendars, and obligations. Because I never say yes without full investigation and evaluation. And that keeps me on track. And what do I mean by that? I think we should evaluate things very carefully before we say yes. Is this thing that I'm going to work on going to deepen my life experience, my growth, my joy, and my impact? Let me say that again. Is this thing I'm considering right now, is it going to deepen my life experience, my growth, my impact, my joy? And if not, if I can't absolutely see, I'm going to really enjoy that. I'm going to grow from that. That's going to allow me to give more, serve something that I deeply believe in. The answer is always a no. Despite the celebrity, despite the obligation, despite the thing, I'm like, ooh, that will make me look like Brendan Burchard. I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm sorry. And so I say no all the time. And it keeps me focused towards what matters, right? The worst thing that we could do to what matters is to dissipate our attention on things that don't matter. And so it's important for you to start looking at everything and just ask those questions. Is this going to deepen my life experience or my contribution or my mission or the things that are really important to me, the real important things to me? Or is this like an alleyway that's just gonna, I don't know exactly where it's gonna go, but I'm not feeling it. And most people's number one problem and priority has very little to do with, can they manage their day? Do they know how to calendar? It truthfully has to do with they're saying yes to like 40% of things they should say no to. And if we could just get those 40% of projects, distractions, things that aren't adding value to their life, we just got 40% of your life back. What I really encourage you to do is look at how you spend your time each week right now on a recurring basis. Is there something you should say no to that isn't deepening your relationship with yourself, with the moment, with your mission, with the people you care about? I mean, things that you're doing because you're like, well, I should be on the homeowner association because, I do live in the building and I'm a leader. I've owned that role. I'm a leader, so I'm on the homeowner association, so I'm giving a couple hours a month there. I really, my kid is actually, finished being in the Boy Scouts, but I'm still helping lead the troops and doing some volunteer stuff because they asked me to, but it's not really my thing anymore. I did it for a while, so I'm giving a couple hours there a week. Well, I don't really love it, but I tend to keep grabbing all these new tools, ideas, and strategies and downloading them to grow my business, but I don't really implement them. But it takes a lot of time to kind of go through the first one of them or first 2 videos or try that tool once, and then I give up. All that, time that you give to something completely, or that time that you're just starting things, like if you're a person who never completes things, you're just always starting. Every week you're starting 20% of something, but you're never completing it. That's real time. Those are chunks of time. If you said no to those, you know what? No, I'm not going to complete that thing. I just know myself. I'm not going to do that. So is that going to deepen my life experience or my joy or my impact or contribution? No. So I'm not even going to start it. The answer is no. I want you to radically increase the no's. And it's not just no to other people. It's not just no's to projects. It is no to the simplest things. It's you open up your browser, there's your homepage, and maybe you're on a browser where it's like Yahoo or something, and it's like, what is this celebrity wearing? I want to know that. No! It's like, don't be a victim of clickbait. All these headlines over the internet, all these things you can click on, all those little curiosities in Twitter, don't go down them. Please don't. If they are relevant to something that you are trying to contribute, something you are trying to learn, go there. See, what people are doing right now is they're browsing the world. They're saying, you know, gosh, I'm interested in this idea. So they follow all these leaders in that space, and they're kind of hoping for an epiphany to hit. What I'd love for you to do before you begin that randomness that sucks so many hours is sit down and say, what is my learning development plan here? Like, I'm interested in this and I want to master it. So what major skills would I have to master to get there? Then start researching and applying on those major skills to get there, right? Don't browse casually in this world. There's too much to browse. You'll never get it all done, and none of it will ever help you with your real creativity. What really helps in creativity is mastery. That's the thing that surprises people all the time. What happens in creativity is when you actually master this field and you master that field, it's not that you don't go get exposure to other areas, but your exposure to other areas is on purpose. So for example, in big companies, we'll take executive teams and we'll say, hey, what I want you to do is let's go out in the field in these 4 specific areas because it's going to help us garner new ideas in this area. But it's very purposeful, very planned, very thoughtful to expose things that are relevant that will help them. It's not just like, hey, here's 10 people to follow on Twitter, which is what most people are doing these days. They're casually interested, not deeply researching. And the difference between the two is the thing that is absolutely revealing to the reality that they're saying yes to too many things when they should say no. Look, if all I did in your lifetime of productivity is get you back 30% of your week to apply to productive, meaningful ends, well, I just did it. Say no more to people, to projects, and to clickbait. Just get disciplined about it. Because if you got a big enough why, like for me, my big enough why, it's hard because I've achieved the things that I've wanted. I've made the money I wanted to make in my life. I've reached the number of people I wanted to reach. I've written some of my best work. I've been awesome and tried really difficult to improve all the relationships of my life and create an amazing family and friends and network and people and all of that. But it'd be easy for me to say, okay, well, you know, I guess I could still just go look at these things that are interesting to me. But there's a difference between interesting things and passion, purpose, meaning, contributions. Don't be that person who's sucked into just everything. Well, you know, that link was interesting. And I know you don't need this talk, but every human being, again, does today. We're being sucked into, we're drowning in a digital stream that none of us ever even decided to wade into. So everyone, as they're drowning in all of that distractions from digital, they're losing real life. And I think the best way to get productivity back, get connected to what you desire or what you want to improve. Own that role, know your whys, really believe in it, and start saying no everywhere. We could stop here, I'm done. And you're gonna crush it. Implement, if you're like, I don't know, just say no to 20 to 30% more things. Just do that. Again, giving it a measure of meaning, of contribution, of the things that you're passionate about. You'll be stunned what happens in your life. Next, 4, always remember that projects have schedules. Projects have schedules. If something is real and it is important and it is a desire for you, there better be a document somewhere that says how you're going to achieve that, what you're going to learn along the way, what must be done along the way. You got to have something that has check boxes and a calendar. No checkbox, no calendar, no real mission. And it's really important to think about that. Look, everything that's vital has to live on a calendar. We talked about that. Ambitions suck without a calendar. They're just hopes, they're dreams, they're nothing real. But once you decide to have a schedule, then it becomes more real because schedules have a time, a place, and a deadline. And we need those. Partially, the easiest way to get an entrepreneur to double their business is to give them deadlines. Because when you own the business, you're like, I can do whatever I want, dude. I can take Saturday off, I can do this. There's no real deadline, so there's no real progress. We must set deadlines again in our life. And we must find that deadline, work backwards, and then project plan. The good news for you is in this session, in the download, you've got my work plan planner. You've got my opportunity evaluator. You've got the ways that I say no. Like, oh, here's how I measure no. Here's how I know. Here's the quadrants. Here's how I measure something. And you'll also have, here's how I plan things. And once you have those things and you just start doing them, everything changes. I have projects that I'm breaking down to get me ahead. I'm going to write a book? Great. There's a research phase. There's a draft phase. There's an editing phase. There's a sharing phase. There's a re-editing phase. There's a finalization phase. Because I put that on a real calendar, I get it done. And so does James Patterson, one of the most successful authors of all time. He just does it. Paulo Coelho says, I'm going to write a book this month. And that month, that's all he's doing. It's his schedule. He's writing a book that month. And he really does write a lot of his books in a month. It's amazing. And so I want you to think about, like, if you can put a schedule to it, everything starts to shift. Think about the major priorities. But then here's the other challenge. Go to your calendar. This is a very, very, very big senior executive thing to do that you should do too. Look at your current calendar and start looking out, put your project on a schedule. When's it going to be working on? When's it going to be completed? What are the stages? Put that on the calendar and then look at what else is on the calendar and start going and finding your no's. It's a little simple thing I do with Fortune 50 executives that blow their mind all the time. I go, what are your major 3 initiatives right now? And they tell me what it is. And I said, let's look at the calendar. We find where those major initiatives are plotted out, and most of the time, they're not plotted out that well. Then once we plot it all out, then I look at what else is on their calendar and immediately being with them and their executive assistant saying, what can we pull out? What can we say no to? Let's start canceling. Boom, boom. And they're like, they're like, oh my gosh. But I'm like, is that meeting really that important? Is that trip really that important? Why are you doing that trip? Why is that important to you? And once you start investigating why in people's lives, they start seeing there's a bunch of crap on their calendar that means nothing to them, won't advance their life experience, their real progress, or their contributions. And now it becomes a game. At first, I promise, and you might feel it from me now, like, dude, this is a lot. And executives always find me intimidating in that role. But maybe that's why I get good relationships with them, is because I'm the first person to go and saying, a lot of the stuff you're doing is nonsense. And very few people will come up to others and say that with respect. Because I respect it. I know you have a lot going on. And that's why it's more important than ever you get rid of everything else. Just get rid of all those little obligations that you said yes to that aren't important to. And a lot of people say, when the executives I work with, they say, well, Brendan, I already said yes to it. I can't say no. I go, why? Well, I can't. I already committed to it. I'm like, yes. But if you break that commitment and now you say no to it, is there any real impact to the results that project will get? To that weekend experience you think you have to be at? To your personal reputation? To other people's ability to serve? And most of the time, we believe we have to commit to something, but when we look at it, we're like, especially when we look at it with enough humility to say, I'm really not the only person in the world who could do that. I'm really not going to add that much more to what would probably happen there without me. It gets you off the road. It gets you out of those commitments that are blocking your real progress, and it gets you back into the things that matter. I hope that these two help you together. Plot your projects out on a real schedule and calendar. Then look at everything you have committed to in the meantime and say, really? Do I really need that? Is that thing fundamental to my progress? That one strategy will serve you so much. If you haven't done a lot of calendaring in your life and you're just like, well, I don't know exactly what my calendar is, then do me a favor. Just draw 12 boxes on a page, right? 12 boxes on a page. Each box represents a month. What are you going to focus on that month? What is it going to be for you? and just start getting used to focusing on things over the course of a month. And I know that's hard for some people, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom and you've been watching all this, and I use these examples of athletes or I use these examples of executives and they're not relevant to you. It still really is. Because I'll never have met someone who needs project planning more than moms. I mean, you are the most busy, extraordinary human beings alive. So you really got to figure out a time to start working your calendar, start protecting time so you can spend more time with the kids. That's quality time versus the runaround time. You know, it's very important that we all master our days so that we can deepen our relationships. Okay, number 5. I'd love for you to think about optimizing your power of place. Maybe you've heard this phrase before, the power of place. It matters where you do your work, what it feels like, what it's like, and I want you to optimize it. And the way you optimize your place, let's say you have a desk, let's say you have an office, let's say you have a place where you write your book. Start cleaning house. Simplify, simplify, simplify. The message here, declutter everything you can in your life. I mean, get very, very, very simple. I'm a person who believes in the idea of simplicity. I'm a person who deeply practices essentialism. I'm a person who believes that if it's just not there, I don't want to accrue it. You know, we've got an entire culture now of hoarders, of people who have abundance, so they hoard stuff because it feels fulfilling, because they feel lost or directionless. So they buy a lot of stuff, or something happened to them one time and they attached meaning to stuff. And so they've got stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff, and all this stuff starts stacking up into an overwhelm. Now in the mental mind share, they're like, I'm disorganized. I have too much going on. I mean, I'm buried in things, literally buried in stuff. Get rid of it. If you've ever been around me or around my stuff, minimal. I don't have a lot of stuff at all. If you could see around here, the most abundant thing in the studio where I'm shooting right now is all these stickies on the note from me throwing it into a pile down here. It's like minimize, minimize, minimize. Go to the most fundamental, basic things you need, strip away everything else. If you haven't read about doing stuff like that, read like the Clutter Diet by Lori Marrero, one of our famous clients from Experts Academy, or read the life-changing magic of tidying up. These books that just basically say, let's evaluate everything in our life, the stuff, and ask whether or not it draws any meaning or joy into our life. If not, donate, recycle, give away as a gift, but clear it from your life. I cannot share with you how unbelievably productive people become when they get their space figured out. And I also want to encourage you this. If you're watching this and you could afford to be in this program, it's time to start designing your ideal space. If you don't already have it for your mission. Like if you're a writer, what would that ideal space be that's possible for you? And start planning to produce that, make that, create that, achieve that. For me, my ideal place that I wanted to write, I wanted to be in the woods, in a spacious, beautiful home that was very rustic, that was comfortable, that had unbelievable views and unbelievable convenience, so I could just focus on my writing and not worry about anything else. I wanted to be in the woods where I could take a fresh walk around as much as I could. I wanted to have a space where I could work out there so I could just be there and not have to leave, like my own little writer's compound. And I've got my villa. And at this point, at first, it was just, I wrote anywhere. I wrote in my when I was starting to write, I wrote in my childhood home. I wrote on a borrowed desk and borrowed computers. But as I started hitting higher performance, I thought, what would be the next level of my creativity? What would unlock that? Same thing we're doing here today, just to understand, I really practice this stuff. The power of place, where I'm shooting this with this view you got here. I thought, when I moved into this town, I said, I want floor-to-ceiling windows. I want a modern design that will make me feel like I'm a design studio to get my mind creative. I want it to be very sparse and modern, and I don't want it to feel like a home. I want it to be a place away from my home. I want it to be a place where my friends can come. I want a place if I want to have a nap. You can't see it, it's off camera here, but I've got a full studio back there where I can go sleep and shower and prepare. And this place has become my sanctuary of creativity. And that was important to me. and I started working toward. I didn't have it at the beginning. I just shot videos out of my apartment. But as I grew, I want you to plan for that. What's that next level of space? And for you, it might be small. It might be less. It might be stripping it down. Whatever it is for you, find it. Organize it. Declutter it. Strip it away. If you're an artist, strip it away. You know, you don't have to have all that stuff there. If you're a researcher, you got to have your research stuff. I'm sure you've all seen the office of Albert Einstein. Right after he passed away, they took a picture of his office, and it was a hot mess. It was also a hot mess of time in his life when he was traveling at an extraordinary rate at a time when, you know, he was being sent research from around the world. I mean, a lot of the clutter really added up at the end of his life. But at the end of the day, you still see that iconic chalkboard. And he had this ability to get rid of all the clutter and see a vision. So much so that a lot of his great imaginations came when he wasn't in the office. It was when he was playing violin. It was when he was taking a walk. It was when he was closing his eyes and imagining that boy speeding along the stream of light. All those famous moments of his life became because he was simple. He was a very simple person. He was truly celebrated for that, even by the US president at the time of his death, saying here was a guy who had all the power in the world, literally. He knew how to design atomic bombs, and he was really about simplicity and humility and curiosity. Let's strip it away, okay? Get your office or your house clean and cleared, decluttered. It will free up a spiritual opening and mindset. It will clean up the energy around you, and it will give you that focus that is so necessary for us to achieve and move forward to. You don't need any more chaos in your life. You probably have plenty of that. So make the spaces you live in and work in non-chaotic, soothing, creative, engaging, exciting. Everything else, strip it away. Same thing in your workspace on your computer. Like, is your computer just smacked with stuff? And there's always a million things going on in it, and it's just like for example, let me give you the example. Most people, when I start working with them at an individual level, they have notifications on their computer. You know, it's like they're typing along, and all of a sudden a text message flies in. All of a sudden, a voice message flies in, an email flies in, a noise happens, and it completely distracts them. Their space is cluttered with sound and sight and distraction, and it's stealing from their productivity. And I'm like, turn those notifications off. What are you doing? No notifications. In the 5x50, you heard 50-minute blocks of time, uninterrupted. It's necessary. The more 50-minute blocks of time where you can work uninterrupted, the more you're going to become a master at what you do. So start finding those times and getting rid of all those distractions by having a place to do real work. Very vital. If you are a person who's watching this and said, Brennan, I work from home, I own my own business, I have 6 kids, and there's no way, then you must teach boundaries at that place. You must say, kids, when mom is at the table and that laptop is up, that means you don't come in the kitchen. And you have to do all that difficult work of being a cajoling, loving, smart, disciplined parent to let them know that that's mommy time to work. And you have to teach kids when they can interrupt you. And it's okay. Hey, look, I'm the most supportive person in the world. I'm like, let your kids celebrate, have fun, be there for them. But knowing that, hey, you got to pay the mortgage. You're probably going to have to pay their college. You're going to have to support them. You got to stay aimed too in your outside world, the stuff that happens outside the house. And so they have to understand that dilemma that, yes, I'm here, I'm mom, I'm dad, but in order to support all of this that we have, daddy or mommy needs time to do these things. And here's the space and the times. And you can set up little triggers and cues, whether you put something on the door so they know not to come in, to whether or not it's just a visual, it's a side, it's a space, it's you sitting down in a specific spot. But make it specific so they understand it and know it, and you protect it to no end. You ensure that they follow that rule, especially as you begin, and that trigger and that rule, that boundary will be established. And now you're like, oh my gosh, you can't wait to hit your place so you can have some quiet time to make the magic happen. Next, sixth, you got to get a team. I'm supposing you already know this, but what I like to do here is say, you got to get the A team. You got to get a team of people around you who are the A team, who bring it, who are amazing. If you're an entrepreneur, you already know this. If you're a solopreneur doing your own business, it's time to immediately start planning, how do I get an executive assistant or a support person or a customer support person? Immediately now. Doesn't mean you can hire them now, but start planning, how could you get them? You might take an intern. You don't even have to pay. So you can give us some mentorship to. You might do it, work with the neighbor kid to help you start getting, cleaned up and organized. Whatever it is for you, you've got to get a team. And I just say, if you're going to spend the time with people, spend the time with great people. Find an A team. In this performance plan, you also get my download of my hiring guide. This is how I hire people. When I go to hire a full-time person, a person who will be a long-term retained contractor with me as an example, here's what I will do. I will look at these questions, and it's the questions to ask them, and it's the questions to ask their former employer. And you always must interview them and their former employer, because if you don't, you only have one side of the story. And you need to understand both sides of the story. There's the questions I ask. So I hope that helps. But you need a team. It's time to outsource some things, and you probably already know that. My job here today is say, do it. You probably know you need to hire that next person. My job today, do it. You've been thinking about getting that intern. My job, do it. We wait too long to get a team, and so we stress ourselves out. We spend too many time learning some side thing that maybe we didn't need to know, that was not a critical skill to our development in our career. We spend too much time thinking we have to do everything around the house when we don't have to do everything around the house. We just have convinced ourselves of that. I can't tell you how many hundreds of people from High Performance Academy have left with the story that I told, that when I decided to leave my corporate world and start writing books and speaking, it got pretty intense, and there was a lot of time that I didn't cook or have any meals. And what ended up happening was I started losing a lot of weight, because I'd skip. I just skipped meals all the time. I started losing a lot of weight. I started functioning less, at a high performance level. And I thought, you know what? Meals are a problem for me. I looked at it. I really thought about it. Thought, am I lazy? And I thought, no. I don't enjoy cooking. And for me personally, I've never enjoyed cooking. I enjoy cooking socially. If people are like, hey, come over, we'll cook together, whatever, and we do it. I'm like, I can have fun at that, but it's just not my thing. Everyone has their thing, and people try to go, well, Brendan, this could be your thing. I'm like, yes, lots of things could. Bank robbing could be my thing, but it's just not, okay? You got to know what your things are. I'm like, cooking's not my thing. And so finally, I'm walking down the street one day, and I happen to pass this culinary school, a culinary arts school. I was walking past it, and I saw these things posted, and I got this idea. I thought, what if I posted an internship for a private chef? I just said, hey, I need someone to be a private chef. I will give you an unbelievable recommendation. And by the way, nobody knew me back then. I didn't have any. I was just a dude. I had no following. I wasn't famous. Nothing. None of that stuff happened yet. It was just, I was just a dude. So I post this thing. I got 4 or 5 applications, and I made them all come over to my house with the groceries, with the meal plan, and they had to cook it, and they had a monthly meal plan. That was the job interview. They all cooked, and we sat and I ate together with each of them. We had a conversation. I kind of vibed or didn't vibe. I liked the food, didn't like the food, liked the plan, didn't like the plan, talked about what I wanted, and they said, great. And so for an entire semester, I had somebody who was at their culinary school. They would every 3 times a week, they would come over to my house, my apartment, I should say, and they would cook for me. And it was awesome. I paid for the groceries, and all I did in that case was I paid enough groceries for me and for them. So I said, cook for 2, so that they would have the food as well. And so I had an entire semester, I had someone cooking for me, really amazing stuff. Some of my favorite foods of my entire life, and I would eat, and sometimes I would eat with them, sometimes I wouldn't, depending on my schedule, and then they would leave. That was it. And I did that one semester. I liked it so much. I did it another semester. I liked it so much. I can't remember if I did 3 or 4 semesters of just these kids who were trying to get experience and they needed for their resume private chef. So you can get creative here. So I just want to say that because a lot of people say, well, Brendan, I don't have the money or the resources to hire. And I say, okay, job one, how could you get the money or resources to hire? Job two, get creative. Job three, if you already are creative and you already know it's time to hire, then today's decision day. If you've been waiting to get an executive assistant, get one. Stop screwing around. Part of everything I've ever done at the highest levels, I walk around and I'll say, you know, it seems like you need a person to do this. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, how long have you known you need someone to do that? You know, I thought about it a couple months ago. I go, you need to learn to start pulling the trigger in your life. If you're ever going to become productive, if it's like, I need someone to do this, hire. Just get it done. Get into it. Well, I don't know, there's a lot of risk to that. No, the risk is you living out your days, not moving your passion, your mission, your business forward because you're mucking around doing things that aren't important to you, that aren't your real skill, that aren't your real passion. Get a team. I can't tell you how vital that is. I know you could figure it out and do it on yourself. I do most of everything in my personal business in terms of marketing. Everything you've ever seen in marketing from me, I personally did that. I sent that email. I posted that thing on Facebook. That's vital to me, you know. And even at that point, I thought, gosh, I've built millions and millions of people doing this. Now I know how it goes. Time to outsource that. Time to get some support with that. Time to start doing that because I know how it goes. Once you build the process and you know how it goes, bring in the talent, let them operate it, optimize it, do it even better than you ever could. I know this is preaching to the choir, but that's why I'm giving you my hiring guide that maybe will add some extra distinctions about how you could hire your next A player on your team. Last and not least, leverage every possible set of tools that you can to get ahead. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the 5 or 10 most accomplished people in your industry, your mission, or your neighborhood and say, can I ask you a question? What tools do you use? You know, if you work from home and you're an entrepreneur, find other entrepreneurs in your space who are more successful and go to them and say, can I ask you a question? I'd love to interview you in general about what you do so I can model you because modeling is a big part of productivity, as you know. But what tools do you use? You know, what apps do you have? What software programs are you using? What's your processes, tools or processes as well, that help you do all this? Get in people's systems, in their tools, in their processes, and model that stuff. We forget. Everyone's reinventing the wheel for no reason. And I do this with people all the time. In people who stand up and say, well, Brendan, I'm just a mom. And I hate when people say that. You're not just a mom. That is an extraordinary thing. And I'll say, well, who do you think in your neighborhood who, you know, she just seems to have it all together? Who is that? Well, that's Sally. She lives over there. I say, do you know how Sally manages her life? Well, I don't know how she does it. Take Sally out to lunch and say, Sally, how do you do it all? I mean, can you tell me about your system? When you wake up, what's your day like? And just start breaking it down. Okay, great. What tools do you have? Are you using any apps, organizing tools, organizing philosophies? How are you getting it all together? Okay, great. What's the process when this happens and that happens? And just get into people's heads about what they do. Learning the systems, tools, and processes that people are using who are above you in terms of their accomplishment, their sanity, their achievement, their wealth is everything. It's a game changer. That's called modeling what is there, utilizing the resources. I mean, it's all there. I've set for you my favorite productivity tools in this session's download as well, because I know if you start amplifying and using things like, here's how I manage my inbox. Here's the thing I do to keep myself on track. Here's where I put my organizing things. Here's why I love Dropbox. All these little things that you can use, they catch you up a couple hours. And imagine if you got just 2 or 3, 4 more hours of your week back, how much greater life progress you could make. I hope these are great beginners starting ideas for you. If you had a major decision or commitment in this session, keep it. Make sure, as always, you're journaling throughout these sessions. Make sure, as always, you're downloading and looking at all the tools that I've given you. You've gotten so many tools, assessments, and materials. If you haven't been downloading them and looking at them, that's a significant part of what we're doing here. I'm only talking to you so long on these videos to try and keep us moving along, but please remember all the resources that you're getting along as well. And of course, comment, share how it's going. We're getting deep into this program now. It's been an honor to serve you. I can't wait to see once you start getting more momentum towards those things that you find meaningful in your life. Do your homework, download the guides, start planning your next couple months in your life, and you'll start to feel that thing that we call high performance.